From his amazing striking techniques that break fighters, to his unique grappling that makes them avoid getting into a ring with him, here's why fighters are scared of Charles Oliveira. Although, there's a lot more that makes him one of the most feared fighters in the game, especially now that we have a rescheduled date for the Beneil Dariush fight. But before that happens, it's time we look at said qualities that Dariush should look out for, because do Bronx is hungrier than ever to not only claim his first career victory in Canada, but he also gets a chance to reclaim his title if he wins the UFC 289 co-main event. And yeah, Oliveira's performance in Canada hasn't been too remarkable because he has suffered horrific injuries every time he has fought there, but things might just be different this time around. My guy decided to get injured before the fight. Talk about being smart, eh? Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira was initially slated to be the co-main event at UFC 288 on May 6th, but it was postponed when the former lightweight champion was compelled to leave the fight due to a minor injury.
It's a minor injury. Boy, that little minor injury sure has some big consequences. I mean, I'm just bringing to your attention. Don't ever tell somebody.
Fortunately for Oliveira, there was no permanent damage. Now, after this bout, the winner may have a crack at the lightweight championship when the UFC returns to Abu Dhabi later this year. Oliveira versus Makhachev, maybe? And even though he isn't being considered the favorite right now, he really should be, because people are badly underestimating him. Look, to be able to fight the top lightweights, let alone finish them, requires a particular sort of warrior. And due to his excellent transition skills on the ground, Oliveira's top thing is the submission game. He holds the UFC record for most submissions and is a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And honestly, it is not surprising that Oliveira is bloodthirsty when he's on his back.
With the triangle choke. That's very tight now. That's it. There's the tap.
He demonstrated that against the skilled grappler Kevin Lee, and even when he outclassed Tony Ferguson on the ground, without a doubt, the guy is among the top submission fighters in the UFC. And that's not where it stops. Yes, the ground game is flawless, but if you notice, he does not prefer it too much. He enjoys mixing things up when it comes to striking because his stand-up skills are solid. Oliveira has developed an aggressive, heavily forward-pressured kickboxing style after leaving the Shoot Boxing Academy. He has still defeated opponents like Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje, despite not being regarded as someone who has strong hands. Oliveira was dropped twice during the Gaethje battle, but he was still willing to trade it one way or another.
Here of Oliveira. Pull guard, look at this. Justin's like, not today, son.
And even Justin admits that Charles is one of the most dangerous fighters in the striking department, as he stated that even though he himself was good at preventing takedowns and applying pressure, his one driving force is that he needs to be better at striking than Charles. Other than that, as I mentioned, Oliveira stands out in the UFC because he is a talented all-around fighter who also has a superior ground game that not many competitors in the division do. I like calling it bait, as Oliveira has a habit of taking it to the ground when things are getting out of hand, because that makes an opponent in the octagon prefer to follow up with ground and pound. Little do they know, it's just Bronx luring his opponents into grappling. Yeah, Islam was an exception, but you get it. Oh, and I almost forgot. The one main thing fighters fear about Oliveira is his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you look at the variety of such fighters in MMA, you'll see that many of them aren't very effective at bringing down their opponents, making it practically simple for you to defend against them. Even Khabib said that the main issue with this technique is not having a decent takedown, but Charles avoids the unnecessary stuff, which makes him a serial killer. Persistent submissions and high-level leg locks are deeply ingrained in his approach, in my opinion. And on top of that, his grappling is considered to be one of the most fearsome in the sport of MMA due to several factors. One, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a grappling-based martial art, obviously. He has won multiple Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu championships, including the World Cup and the Brazilian Nationals. This means that he has a deep understanding of grappling techniques and is highly skilled in executing them. Second, Oliveira has developed a unique style of grappling that is very difficult for his opponents to deal with. He's known for his aggressive and unorthodox submission attempts, which often catches opponents off guard. He's also very good at chaining together different submissions, which means that he can quickly transition from one submission attempt to another, making it very difficult for his opponents to defend against him. And what acts as a cherry on top is how physically gifted and flexible he is. Most fighters can't get into position as he can, can, which leads to executing submissions from seemingly impossible angles, which can be very scary for his opponents. All of these abilities, and the fact that he can just take punishment and keep going, combine to make him one of the most feared fighters in the UFC. This kind of fighting spirit is something that other fighters respect and admire. And one thing you've got to give him is that the man is known for his humility and sportsmanship. He always shows respect to his opponents, win or lose, and is gracious in victory and defeat. This kind of attitude is something that is valued in the world of combat sports, where trash talking and disrespect are the norm. So much so that Glover Teixeira expressed his gratitude for not competing against former UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira. In an interview conducted not too long ago, Teixeira praised his fellow countrymen and discussed what makes him a feared opponent. Not only did he praise him, he said that he'd rather stop fighting than have a fight with Oliveira.
Elogia Charles, isso aí ninguém quer saber de porra nenhuma.
He said that it was a relief that the guy was not in his division. Particularly, the constantly improving ground game was what Glover feared the most. Which reminds me, Dariush shouldn't take the underdog lightly. Yes, I'm talking betting odds, as Dariush was listed as a -120 favorite to beat Oliveira in the opening betting lines, and the odds have subsequently extended since then to the fighter being listed as a -140 favorite. He has an outstanding winning streak in the division going into the fight, but I keep saying, an underdog Oliveira is probably the most dangerous fighter I have seen, because winning 11 straight fights over fighters like Chandler, Poirier, and many others is no joke. And in my opinion, just one loss in such a long time isn't going to change anything, because although Dariush is an amazing fighter, he's been submitted 3 times in his career, which suggests that he may struggle to defend against Oliveira's grappling. Plus, Oliveira has been on a tear in the lightweight division, facing tough competition, and has shown that he is able to adapt his game to different opponents. This means that he is likely to be well prepared for Dariush's style of fighting, and having a significant experience advantage over Dariush has to account for something, right? He has been in the UFC for over a decade and has fought some of the best fighters in the world, while Dariush has been in the promotion for about 7 years and has not faced the same level of competition as Oliveira. And the fun part is that Beneil had previously warned other fighters who were doubting scary Oliveira, as when Islam and his team were being pretty vocal, Dariush brought up the Chandler and Justin fights and how Charles proved them wrong. And yeah, I know Islam won, but I'm trying to say that the fighter knows what he's up against. He previously said that he respects him and the way Oliveira fights and admires his ability to come back from the dead, even calling the Brazilian a scary man at that time. But now he's doing the same, trying to build up the hype. And I don't think that's a great idea. You're a rising star going against a UFC veteran who basically is a killer in disguise and is going to exploit every weakness there is. And if a guy can turn the table, especially after taking a wave of strikes, it's none other than Do Bronx. He has proven it time after time, and that is why fighters are scared of Charles Oliveira.